Hey folks, Tom here. Let me get this mic out of here so I don't scream too hard into the mic. I think that should be better. Welcome back. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining us again, coming on. If you're the first time here, thank you too. Appreciate it. It is Thursday night. Wow, I'm going to have to talk a little bit softer tonight. It is Thursday night. We're going to have some fun. So, in the next hour, we're going to go through our conditioning that we do every class. Start with our sun salutation, right? Our stretching routine. We'll do some push-ups, some sit-ups, some jumping jacks. We'll do our footwork. We're going to focus on a new cut pattern today. We're going to look at the Meyer square, and I point because we have a big, huge banner. Thank you, Rock, hanging on our wall here. So the next time you come in, you can see it because it's new since we've closed. Actually, I think you can see it in that mirror there, kind of the bottom half of that camera, kind of square. So we're going to go through, there's 4 parts to the Meyer square cut routine. We're going to go through the first 2 parts. Part 1, we're going to walk forward. Part 2, we're going to walk back. You can do all 4 forward. You can do them all in place. You have a lot of options, but we're going to do first part forward, second part back. So we're going to go through that. We'll break in the center with a little bit more conditioning. I know you all love that. Thank you. I love it. And then we're going to talk about, in the second half, about visual focus and observation in an encounter, what that really means, where should we be looking, how do we relate to our opponent, how do you, again, I wish I like to do both sides of that coin, what's your opponent thinking, what should you be thinking as an opponent, and then we'll talk a little bit about the parts of an encounter, right? What can you do as you're starting off or in the middle of that match, and to that we'll kind of introduce a guard or two along the way. So as always, subscribe, like, shoot me a comment, and forward it to your friends, right? I want to try to get some more coverage for this if we can. Thank you for everybody that's been watching. I really appreciate it. I've gotten some great feedback, and gotten some good stuff for the next couple classes that we have for next week. So I did get a request, thank you, to do some two-hand, two swords type work. So we're going to look at that next week. That will be a very Japanese kenjutsu style because that's mine. I might ask one of the guys to come in and do some more rapier and dagger work, or but there are a lot of great 2-weapon reference videos out there. Tim Hartman is amazing. Datu Tim is amazing, right, in Horizon Martial Arts. I'll put a link to his stuff up here as well. He has a martial art minute that he does. It's a great little video as well. So with that, enough delaying. Let's do our stretching routine to start, and then we'll go from there. So shoulder width apart, relax, get ready. God, I gotta move that up to the ceiling. Down to your toes, knees, ankles, floor, whatever you can reach today. Walk it forward in a downward dog. Push your heels to the ground. Get a good stretch in the back of the legs. Dive down, roll up into cobra, stretch your lower back, up into plank. At the end of class, we will do our now traditional 1 minute of plank. The folks that have not been watching this are going to love that when they come back. But we will do that as well. So left foot forward, stretch your leg. Back, switch. And back. Chin to your chest, head between your arms. And walk in. Stay on your tiptoes, stay in a squat. We're going to roll up nice and slow. And by the way, when I first started doing these stretches, I couldn't do the left leg forward as far. You will see some serious benefits. And Eric is here dropping some stuff off, so he's going to walk in a few minutes, all the way up to the ceiling. And then out to the walls. And down. I told him you're here already. He's coming in. He's 20 feet away, masked up, so we're all good to go. So I'm going to shut this down, my mic off. We're going to do 25 jumping jacks, and then 20 push-ups, 40 sit-ups. And I know a few of you have joked with me saying, that's crazy, I can do like half of that, or you're not doing enough, I can do double. Awesome. You do what you can do, right? The important thing is that you push yourself, right? I like the 20 and 40. It's a good mix. When we're done here, we've got about, well, we did 4, so we did it twice. We got 40 push-ups and 80 sit-ups. I like that. It's a good mix for a nice hour class. If you can do more than that, great. Do it. right? If you want to do another set later on tonight, do another set later tonight. If you're struggling to get that first 10 out, that's cool. Get what you can get. Keep a log, right? Every single time, just do one more of whatever you're doing. You do one more, you will realize, and very soon you're progressing and making progress. This is all about personal best, right? You're not trying to compete with anybody else here. You do what you can do and take it as far as you can take it, and then push yourself one more step, right? So with that, I'm going to shut this off so you don't hear me heavy breathing. 25 jumping jacks, 20 push-ups, and 40 sit-ups. Your pace, your count. Now, roll over, sit-ups. Again, with the sit-ups, we'll do 40 sit-ups, your pace, your count, your type. You can do, crunches. I think I'm going to do crunches today. I think I usually do crunches. Got to change that. You can do crunches, you can do leg lifts, you can do oblique twists, you can do in place. Just please, 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 please don't go flat down to your back all the way up to your knees. It does. It's not good, right? You don't get the benefit you can. Quarter way down, 3/4 up. That's the range of motion you want for a sit-up that keeps a constant pressure in your core. So with that, I'm going to shut this back off. 40 sit-ups, your pace, your style. Go. And 40. All right, let's let everyone catch up. Or get yourself, make sure you have water, right? Stay hydrated. For me, I'm like, hey, doesn't coffee count? Coffee, I guess, doesn't really count. Tough. All right, so footwork. Thank you, sir. We have a pal now, Henry. Introduce him next week into the mix. We can actually do some partner drills. This is totally awesome. Let me, so go ahead. Cool. I'm going to introduce this to you guys in a second. So I don't know if you're hearing Eric. We now have two weapons. It's a longsword weapon and a rapier type weapon, so a thinner blade. It's just a nice little tool. It'll be a really good introduction for us. So, cool. Awesome. Oh, nice. All right. No problem. That's cool. Thank you. I'll bring it out here later and show you guys. So, footwork. Sweet. Awesome. Thanks, man. All right. See you later. All right. So, footwork. Right foot forward, left foot back. It's Thursday, so we're doing the pushing steps. So, my rear leg is what drives the step. It's almost like a little hop, right? It's a little jump forward. I don't want to make it too much of a hop because then too much of our energy goes up and not toward our opponent or away from our opponent, right? We want to direct that energy where it's most appropriate. So we'll talk about that in a minute. When we talk about, I want to talk about that for a minute too. So right foot forward, left foot back. One step forward, one step back. Push. Now our front foot pushes back. Push. It's one. Up and back. What do we do? 10 times? Ready? Go. 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Cool. Nothing says you can't preload the step back, right? But I'm not placing it and pulling with my rear leg like I do with our pulling steps, right? I am pushing myself back. Remember, there's pros and cons, right? It'll get me forward. It might get me forward quicker. Speed's an illusion. We'll talk about that in another video, maybe later. I don't know. What it will do though is be careful, because as soon as you initiate that action, you can't do anything until you finish that action, which means you can't change directions in mid-flight. I can't defy gravity yet. If you figured it out, tell me, because I need to do it too. So when I launch, can't do anything until I land. Now I can change direction and come back. Whereas in my pushing step, as I'm coming forward, if I need to shift back, I can pull my weight back because my contact point's always on the ground, right? Anytime you leave both your feet off the ground, this is what I was going to talk about. Anytime both your feet come off the ground, you can't do anything until you land. You can't properly protect yourself. You can't move, right? That's why you don't see most professional fighters and fencers doing that. Yes, you see the flesh, right? That lunging, throw yourself forward movement. But if you really watch someone who's good at that, their feet never truly, their foot's always there, so they can always catch themselves. They're always contacting the floor, right? They're always in contact. I'm not a big fan of the flesh. Some people are, some people aren't. That's my opinion and my preference. As far as energy goes, you got to be careful when you're doing this pushing stuff. I know we got to switch sides and do the 10 on the left foot forward. We'll do that in a second. The more you go up, the more you're directing your energy up and not forward or back of your opponent's space. You're just wasting energy and wasting time, right? And again, the more I leave the ground, the more vulnerable I am to an attack, because I'm less, I am possibly, right, to move out of the way, right? Unless I can jump and tuck and roll, which some people can. I can't, but if you can do that, good on you. But again, keep that energy forward and back. Don't go arcing with that energy. And use this judiciously, in the right place at the right time for this type of movement. So with that, left foot forward, right foot back. Jumping forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. You can see I kind of canted a little bit as I was doing. I caught myself in the mirror. Right? It's easy with the jumping because I'm trying to push. Right? So it's easy to kind of cant your body. Fight that. Keep your core nice and straight. Keep your center of gravity where you want it to be. Cool. Double advance, double retreat with the push. So essentially it's a double hop. 1, 2. That was messed up. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's awkward, but that hop does actually come into play. Some guys practice that as a favored technique. If you like it, do it. All right. It's a nice thing about the variation of sword arts that we have at our disposal to pull from as fighters, because there's so much variety out there that we can find things that work with our approach and our mindset, or we can push ourselves into a new approach and a new mindset. So do both, right? I gotta stop being too heavy. Left foot forward, right foot back. Jump, jump, push. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. God, my left is horrible with this. It's one of those days. All right. Good. Cool. Let's talk about Cut drills. So, the Meyer cut square. Meyer, Joachim Meyer. God, guys, keep me honest. 15th century, 16th century, 15th. They'll correct me. Keep me honest, right? Anyway, Art of Combat, great treatise. I think it's 16th century. Anyway, there's all kinds of weapons: one-handed, two-handed, pike, spear, mounted, all that kind of stuff. The cut drill we're going to pull out of it is the Meyer square. So it's a 16 cut pattern. We're going to go through the first 2 parts. So the first 8 cuts. 4 cuts forward, 4 cuts back. I'm a visual learner. I learn by patterns, right? So if that helps you, the pattern for this drill is you start in your upper right quadrant. Downward cut, 2 upward cuts in opposite quadrants. Immediately upward following, upward to the opposite side, finish with the only quadrant you haven't been in with a downward cut. The second round, you reverse that action from where you ended in this case. So upward cut, 2 downward cuts, down, down, last upward cut. Cool. So I've gone quadrant 1, quadrant 2. That's all we're going to do tonight. But the next quadrant 3 goes back to the upper left. Quadrant 4 goes to the lower left, right? So it's 1, 4, 2 4s, start 3 4s, start for your 4th 4 set. The pattern for each of them is the direction you start, the quadrant you start in, 2 of the opposite, the same quadrant you started in. So if you're going down for your first cut, it's down, up, up, down. If you're going up, it's up, down, down, up. So, easy to get. If that clicks for you, great. If it takes time to practice, let's do it. So we're going to start in shoulder guard. So, we've done this guard before. It's also in the fundamentals videos that I have on guards. I think it's in the first video or second video. I think I only have 2 on guards, so watch them both. But, essentially a shoulder guard. Again, I'm going to start everything in middle guard. So we're out in our primary guard position to our opponent. This is how I start. One option for me to start an encounter. I want to move to a shoulder guard. So I want to draw multiple compound, reasons for doing this. I want to draw my opponent in. I want to set myself up for an attack. I may be voiding my opponent coming at me, right? Shoulder guard, I'm going to, again, as I've said, you're just going to bend and retract this arm. I'm not dropping my shoulder. I'm not raising my shoulder. My shoulder stays nice and natural. Just pull my blade straight back as I step back. That's our shoulder guard. Very, very, very simple. My arm is nice and relaxed. How do you get there from this position? Arm is down, bend your elbow. There's where the top of your sword goes. Bottom hand is here. So again, from middle guard, pull in like a piston pulling in. Right? Let the blade pull you back. That will also suck your opponent into you. Right? That feeling of intention will be there as well. So right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard. Tip at your opponent's eyes. Toes pointed forward, knee over your front foot. Nice, comfortable back leg. I'm not leaning forward. Nice equal weight distribution. Pull back. Now, left foot is pointed toward my opponent or toward where I want to attack. Right foot is out, shoulders up. I'm not squared, still a little bit bladed, right? Where my feet aren't touching each other if I cross path them. Right, good. Okay, so let's get back and give myself some room. Right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard, step back into shoulder guard. Good. You've brought your opponent in. We're going to do 4 steps forward. Cut down. Cut up. Cut up. Cut down. 1, 2, 3, 4. All with leading edge cuts. We talked on Tuesday about edge alignment. Knuckles represent your leading edge since we don't have an edge to look at, right, with this infinite edge round tube. Right? My knuckles represent my front edge, my lead edge. Middle guard, pull back, shoulder guard. Cut down, 4 cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. One more time. 4 cuts, middle guard. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the next 4 cuts, we started in quadrant 1. Now we're going to quadrant 2. Quadrant 2 is a low line, so that means my cuts are rising cuts, right? So my first cut is going to be a rising cut as I step back. 1. Since my first cut was rising, my next 2 are descending. 2, 3. Last one is a rising cut. 4. Also, the trick is I'm always cutting with my strong, with my hips, right? So you're never seeing me cut against my hips. 4. Good. So let's do that again. So 1, 2, 3. We end with 4. Oops, sorry. Yeah, we end here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do all 8 together. So right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard. Step back into shoulder. Good. 4 cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, up, 2, up, 3, down, 4. Now backwards, up, 1, down, 2, down, 3, up, 4. Let's do them all in one direction just so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to be off camera on the side here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can do these in both directions. We're going to do one more time, up and back. Up first 4, back second 4. Next week we'll add in the back 4 and you can do all 16 cuts. Alright, so right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard. Pull our opponent in. Step down, cut. 4 cuts. 1, up 2, up 3, down 4. Retreating, up 1, down 2, down 3, up 4. Good. Shoulder. One more time. Forward. Up 2, 3, down 4. Retreating, up 2, 3, 4. Good. Nice. Practice that. First 4. We'll do the next 4 at the next class. I will pull these out and put them in a separate video for us. All right. We're gonna have some fun here today. Okay. Cool. We might end a little bit early. I'm a little ahead of schedule. Let's do some more conditioning. 20 more push-ups, 40 more sit-ups. Again, your pace, your count. I'm going to shut this off. And again, for those doing push-ups, as you work through it, right? I'm going to do these knuckles like I kind of do in the second half. I always like to do knuckles in the second half. If you're going to do knuckle push-ups, great. Try to focus on the first 2 knuckles as you're doing your push-ups, right? I don't want to bend my wrist in, or my wrist. I don't want to bend my wrist down. I want to keep nice and straight. I want that alignment, right, through my arm for that. So keep your arms nice and straight if you're going to do knuckles. All right, so 20 push-ups, 40 sit-ups. I'm going to shut the mic off while I do the push-ups. I'll turn it back on as we kind of gather for the sit-ups. All right, so as everyone starts to finish up, this floor kind of sucks for knuckles. It's a pretty hard rubber floor. If you've got a hardwood floor at home, grab a yoga mat, right? Put a yoga mat out. Do the push-ups and sit-ups on a yoga mat. Speaking of yoga, if you haven't done the longsword yoga class, do it. There is a 100 cut challenge going on out there. In the yoga class, in 30 minutes, we do, I think, 250 cuts. Right? Different cuts, different movements, different combinations, some with squats, some with lunges, some by themselves, some combinations, some doing with crunches. So, and I don't think I even counted them all. So at least 240 cuts in that 30-minute class. So if you haven't joined it or saw it, take a look at the one I just posted a few minutes ago, or any of the ones we've done in the past 3 weeks, right? And then join me next Tuesday for our next longsword yoga class. So with that, let's do some sit-ups. 40 sit-ups, your style, your pace. All right, I added about 5 more in there because my first 5 were a little wonky, a little messy. So the oblique twist that I was just doing, really just a little bit of a tuck and twist as you're pulling in for your compressions. I can't think of the right word, whatever. So it kind of really engages your obliques and the side of your abs, your side of your core. So it's an often not used. It's if you feel any stress or pain as you twist, that's where it's coming from, right? So work on these and focus on those oblique exercises. So, all right. Let's talk for a little bit. I've gotten a few questions, and we talk about this in class once a month or so. I bring it up because I think it's a super important topic about visual focus and observation, right? So, fencing and fighting is all about observing your opponent, and actually anything you really do. Whether you're playing a sport, sports ball, or nerd stick. I don't care what you're doing, as Tanner says all the time. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're walking down the street, whether you're driving your car, whether you're riding your bicycle, whatever you're doing, where you see is super important, and where you're looking is super important. Used to ride a mountain bike years ago. I used to love the mountain bike, right? First lesson I ever took before I fell on my face a few times was them saying, never look at your wheel. Always look 2 to 3 feet ahead of where you're going. When you're riding a motorcycle, always look ahead of where you're going, because your body reacts differently, your mind thinks differently. In that short vision focus, you get too much tunnel vision and you kind of miss the big picture. Same thing with fencing, right? And what I always try to tell people is, people say, where do I look? Do I look at their eyes? Or look at their sword, their hips, their waist, their feet, right? Where do I look? There's so many places to look. Absolutely right. Every single one of those places, you can be deceived by your opponent, right? I've jokingly said it. We all joke about it. Sword fighting is the art of deception, right? It's me tricking my opponent, saying, oh, I'm too tired, I'm not going to hit you there. Bang, hitting them there. So where do you look? A lot of concepts on this, a lot of thought on this. I'm going to come a little bit closer, sorry. I generally say, we take that same bubble concept, right? We talked about this bubble of when we do our cuts. Got a bubble around our body. When I do my full cuts, pop, pop, I pop both ends of the bubble. That's pretty much it. Essentially, I go into a low guard in my cut, or if I'm cutting up, pop, pop, I'm into a high guard, right? But I'm popping the bubble at both ends. Well, that bubble is your sphere of vision, right? You don't want to look to any point anywhere in there, because again, I can easily be deceived with a hip movement and a cut come from the outside. A distraction to my left when the cut's coming from my right. It's too easy to be distracted. So what I always say is soften your focus, blur your vision without blurring your actual vision, right? Soften your focus to see the entire bubble. You can see it. We're not fighting in our periphery, right? We're not fighting most of the time. Hopefully you're never fighting more than one person, right? But you're certainly not, in a tournament setting, you're fighting the person across from you, not the people here, right? So I don't have to worry about where my peripheral vision takes me to. Now mine's kind of here right now, which is not bad. It's been better, getting older, right? You want your focus around that bubble, and you can soften your vision and practice it in a mirror. Stand across the mirror and just look at your entire person, right? You should be able to see. If you find yourself focusing too much, blink yourself out of it and soften your focus. It's a great drill to practice. People think you're crazy, you're standing in a mirror looking in a mirror, but no, you're not looking at any point of yourself. You're just trying to see your entire body, right? Move your arm. What are you seeing? You can see it. I can see it in my vision. I can see what's happening here without having to focus on any one particular part. It will help you plan and see where's their footwork. Oh, let me get back. You know, they're across from me in middle guard. They brought their rear leg forward, right? If I'm focused on my arms and I've got you here looking at my blade and I prep that back foot, if you're not paying attention to my entire presence, you don't see that I just gathered that step from here because you're looking at the blade moving. I didn't change my front line at all. Now my left foot is up. So what does that put me? That much closer in for an attack, right? So there's a lot of deception things that can happen. I can be stepping out to the side. I can do an appel, that jumping step. I can bounce my foot. If you're focused on different things, you can pull someone's attention, right? And it's really good. And let's turn that around for a second. You're crossing it from an opponent. The more you can soften your vision, your opponent's going to want to distract you, right? Try to avoid it. Try to keep that vision loose, right? When you have a mask on, it's good because you can almost focus on the mask for a second to pull yourself out of a tunnel. Focus on the mask. Oh, cool. And I can loosen back up. It's one of the tricks that I do in the middle of a fight. Okay, we'll talk more about that as we go, right? Observation is kind of the next topic I want to talk about. Sorry, this is an odd class tonight. It's a weird day here today. But anyway, so we'll see how far this goes. It all guys goes so we've got this concept of I'm looking around my opponent. I'm seeing their bubble, right? I'm seeing their presence. What are some of the key areas we want to focus on, right? Foot position is super key, right? We practice our footwork at the beginning of this class not as a conditioning drill, or not exclusively as a conditioning drill, but as a drill that develops muscle memory. So I know that if I step, I can pull that. If I load my back leg for a withdraw, I don't have to do it until I'm ready. And I know that I've got the strength in my rear leg to pull myself back because I do it all the time, right? So where do I look at my opponent? I want to see where their feet are, right? Are they left foot forward? Okay, if they're right foot forward. If they're right foot forward and they're in a middle guard, okay, we've talked a lot about what attacks can occur from which guards, right? But if they're left foot forward and they're maybe up in a shoulder guard, well, the highest probability of attack, and we talk about probability of attack a lot, right? The highest probability of an attack from this rear leg shoulder guard we were doing before, leading off the Meyer cut square, is a downward angled attack, right? The first attack we did in the cut square. Well, if I see their right leg is back, they're loading themselves up for an attack, right? So I can see that without focusing on I'm not staring at my opponent's feet. I can see where their feet are. So start to connect the dots up the body. What's their feet position? Where's their blade? Where are their hands? Where's their head at? Now, if I'm here, right foot forward, up in shoulder guard, interesting, right? Can I attack downward from here? Yes, I certainly can. I don't want to step forward with my left leg because then I'm cutting against my body. So not saying fighters won't do that. Some may, right? Not the highest probability of attack you'll see. So if we're up in shoulder guard and I see my opponent in this position, right? Their blade is kind of come down in this descending cut from right to left. Well, by them doing that, their strong is already forward, their right's already forward. So that means they're going to probably, again, highest probability, do a gathering step forward, a half step forward, right? The same side step. So that means they're going to advance into their cut, which also means they move a shorter distance. Because this step, as we do it every time, right? This step is not meant to gain a big distance. This step is bring yourself into measure step. Retreat out of measure without changing my angle of attack. As opposed to, I need to move into my opponent and I'm setting my angle of attack up. So, if my opponent's across from me, right foot forward, and they're here and they pull back into a shoulder guard, well, their range of motion has been reduced for this attack. As opposed to, even if I put my foot back, so I'm going to start right foot on the line, hopefully you can see that, shoulder guard. I'm going to do a standard advancing step, cut down. I'm stepping to a little before midway in the line, hopefully you can see that. Left foot forward, same line, I'm stepping farther, right? So it's all about observation. Okay, so if my opponent has their blade loaded up on the right side and their right side forward, might not be doing an advancing step. They're going to do a little gathering step, so their range is shorter. Same thing if I'm in right foot forward and I'm up on my left shoulder guard. Okay, step forward and cut. But highest probability of attack is a downward angle cut, descending cut from left to right. So if I'm an opponent, sorry about this, that's to my outside, which happens to be, if I'm in middle guard, the most exposed and the closest area to my opponent. So if I'm in a right foot forward middle guard and I see my opponent go up in left foot forward, highest probability of attack is where my arm is. So not only am I being observant of my opponent, I also have to be very observant of my positioning relative to my opponent. Does that make sense? Let me stop there for a second. So what position is your opponent in? Right, we'll talk a little bit about sequencing in a second, and that's the mechanics of an encounter that I want to get to. But what position is my opponent in? What position am I in? What's the implication of those two factors? Does that make sense? Now, let's step back in time a few moments right before that. So what we're taking now is my opponent's in a guard, I'm in a guard, or an invitation, or I'm in an invitation, something. We're in two positions on the floor, right? Let's go right before that and spend a few minutes talking about what happens before that. So to me, I call it the mechanics of an encounter, right? So an encounter is I come across my opponent and a fight ensues, if that was what was the intention. And there's another thing we'll talk about is intention. So I come across my opponent. Let's see. I am standing, I think I'm still in the side camera, at this line. These are 4 feet across. For those that have been here, you know this. We go through this every once in a while. 4 feet, 8 feet, 12 feet. So I think this covers the frame of the side camera. So we are 12 feet apart. My opponent and I, my virtual opponent and I, you and I, 12 feet apart, right? At 12 feet apart, our feet on the line, we cannot hit each other. If I step in, now I'm reaching what? To maybe the black line. Stands to reason. I've got a 34-inch blade, 33-inch blade on the end. My arm is, I don't know, what is that, 20-something inches? I forget what my arm length is, 26 something. So it's roughly 5 feet out, 6 feet out. So these are 4 feet, 5.5 feet. Stands to reason, right? If we both did that, we're going to be able to hit blades potentially, right? I don't think I can reach my opponent's hand if they step forward. Maybe I can. What I'm trying to get at with all this is, at this 12-foot distance, what happens next is the most important thing. One person will go into a guard. So, all right, so I will step forward into middle guard. Now I'm closer. If my opponent steps forward, so my foot's about 10 inches from that line, right? If my opponent steps forward, this is awkward to do this, but I wanted to try this, into guard. They're about 10 inches from this line. So we are now about 5 feet apart, which means our blades are crossed. We are in measure, right? We took one, got into guard each, and we are in measure with each other, where the next half a step is a hit to the opponent. So it's really important to look at when we're starting an encounter, or you're starting a match in a tournament. Let's use that setting because it's easier to think about. Or I'm fighting in a duel in a field, but most of us aren't fighting duels. Probably a few of you out there might be. That's fine. Good luck. We're all in a tournament setting. So we're across from our opponent. We start out of measure in the tournament setting, right? If I'm away from my opponent and I go into guard out of measure, I'm out of frame purposefully, right? It's like inching forward in guard. It does nothing but make me waste time, waste energy, and doesn't really deceive my opponent at all, other than just saying, okay, come on, come on, come on, right? So we come in, we reach a point of measure to our opponent where we want to elicit a response in them, or solicit a response, or ask for a response, or trigger a response. Put your own word in there, whatever you're comfortable with using, right? I do that by an invitation, right? So one of the invitations, we talk about guards versus stances versus kamae invitations, right? An invitation essentially is a position that I'm putting myself in, myself being my blade, my feet, my body, my head, my hands, my arms, that encourages a certain response from my opponent, right? So opponent A comes in, comes into middle guard. Maybe they go off in an outside middle guard, right? They're trying to give me an invitation, and maybe they'll even tuck that shoulder forward a little bit. Hopefully you can see that subtle movement, which wants my opponent to, I want my opponent to hit me in the shoulder. Come on. Because I want to plan my defense, parry, strike back, right? Or I want to beat, parry, strike to the head like we did on Tuesday. I'm setting my actions up by giving a position that influences, hopefully, the actions of my opponent. So that's the encounter. So that's the beginning of the encounter. Someone walks up and gets into a guard. Boom. Here. Now, as the opponent to this person getting into guard, I have 3 options. I can step back out of measure. Now their guard is wasted because it's not a threat to me, and it means not. So I'm forcing them to come into my measure again. So I'm withdrawing from their measure. Someone comes in, I'm across, I'm like, maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I'm doing this because I need more time. Maybe I'm doing this because I want to interrupt their flow. I'm just stepping out of measure. That's my response. That's one response. Second response is I counter invite. He's up or she's up, my opponent's in middle guard. I come across from them and be like, okay, I'm going to do this facing this way. Fine. I step in a little bit in shoulder guard. I want my opponent to here, right? So I'll even step in for shoulder guard. Kind of very threatening, right? Very aggressive. I'll even lean forward, cant in a little bit, put some more weight on my leg. Nothing we should do, but I'm doing it for a purpose. So I counter their invitation with my invitation. Didn't like theirs. Didn't want to take action. I want to see what they'll do. Come on. Come get me. Hit me. Right? That's my second option. My third option is I accept their invitation and attack them. Or take action on their blade. There's a lot you can do when you take action on a blade. But that next step is they're here. Yeah, I want that. Bang. Smack. Head. Or engage. Wait. See what they do. Right? I take action on their blade. I accept their invitation. Right? Perfectly reasonable. But I'm doing that with my strategy. Now, keep in mind, your opponent has a strategy too. Right? So you're fighting, we talk about this all the time, right? You're fighting against your opponent's strategy with yours. Ideally, what you want to do is alter yours or present yours in a way that just slightly alters there to make them think it is their strategy. Best thing is like, damn, I meant to do that and you hit me. Yeah, I know, I did that purposely. Or I've had it done against me many, many times, and that's great. Because I'm being slightly manipulated to do what I think I want to do, but it's really what my opponent wants to do. And it's a really great learning experience when that happens to you, because you really can sit and think, what happens? Why did I do that? Oh, and ask them to repeat it, right? This is where we have partnerships, right? We don't, and that's the core tenet of CSA, is this is a learning environment first and foremost, and we are partners on this mat together. So if my partner does something in the middle of a sparring session, and they just got a great hit in, and I'll acknowledge it. You don't get mad at that. You're in this environment to lose, to learn, so that you can then improve over time, right? I will say, do that again. Do that again. You get me every time on that. Do that again. And we'll work through it a few times, right? Does that mean my opponent has to be tricky now and do something different? No. It's a partnership. You want to work together. So if you're fortunate enough to have a partner local to where you are, awesome. If you have someone who has never done sword art before, get them watching these. Now you got a partner, right? You guys can have some fun. You folks can have some fun. You got a kid or a niece or a nephew or a parent or a grandparent or whatever. Put a stick in their hand and teach them, show them, walk through some videos with them and start doing this together, because then you have partners. The best way we learn and grow is by experiencing this with someone, so that we can start to see where the mistakes we're making, plain and simple, right? And how do we get better? So, all right, so we got it. Let's go back to the encounter. There's 2 of us across from each other. We're out of measure. One of us initiates a guard with an invitation. The other person has 3 choices. withdraw, counter the invitation with their own, or accept their invitation and take action against their blade. Now, again, when you get to the point where I'm going to counter an invitation and you counter an invitation, you know, somebody has to take action at some point, right? Maybe that's just my impatience that comes through. My guys know, and you guys know that are my folks, right? I have horrible patience levels, so if you stand there, I will attack you, and you know, and usually I'll do it blindly because I'm frustrated, right? That's something I always work on. Everyone has a few things they work on. That's what I'm always working on. So, you counter an invitation, they counter invitation, back and forth. And the one thing I'll say about that is, I've said this in other videos, you got to move with intention, right? If I go into a guard and make an invitation to my opponent, it's for a reason, right? It is either to trigger a response, solicit a response, or elicit a response, right, from my opponent, or it's to make an opening so I can attack, or create an opening so I can capitalize on it, right? I don't want to necessarily rush. I need to give my opponent time to process what I'm doing. If I'm in middle guard and I drop down in a low guard as an invitation, maybe even I drop it off to the side, maybe I come in low for an invitation and give them my head, I need to pause to let them think about it. What that doesn't mean is I don't want to sit on my heels and lose the energy of movement that I have stored up, the potential energy I have stored up, right? So, but if I go in, if you're that fighter, relax, slow down, and let your opponent respond to the movements you're going into. Now, if your intention is to confuse the heck out of your opponent and just run around them, hey, that works too sometimes. I've seen it incredibly effective, right? But move with intention. Then you have intention to do that. If I say, dude, why are you running in circles? I'm doing it to get off your backside, and so you think I'm learning. Oh, you have intention for doing that. Cool. Awesome. Move with purpose. Right? What I'm trying to say is everybody has their own fighting style. As long as you do it intentionally, good. Right? Don't fall back and do the same thing all the time. Always continue to push yourself and grow. The best fighters that I've ever seen, fought with, helped, watched, right, have been fighters that have grown over time, right? If I watch a video of theirs from years ago, or how they fought from years ago to how they fight today, or if I fought them years ago, right, it's usually different. We all have to continually evolve in how we move because our bodies change over time, right? Our mentality changes. Maybe we were very aggressive as younger and we're more passive now. Maybe the opposite, right? Anyway, a lot of talk in this half of the hour. Sorry, I really want to go through some of these concepts. So we have an encounter, two people apart, one person creates the first action. You have three responses there. Withdraw, force them to change their strategy. Counter, which gives them something more enticing to hit. Hit me in the head, hit me in the head. Okay? Or take action on their blade. Or take action on their invitation. Let me say it that way. If we take action on the invitation, that could mean displacing their blade to create a new center line or take over the center line. That could mean stepping off to the outside or inside or to create a new center line for the attack. It could be a compound movement where I move their blade, attack their head. It could be a singular movement in tempo where I clear their blade and strike in one movement. Right? So you have options, a lot of options. The more you have a lot of tools in your toolbox. That's why we kind of cover a lot of different things in these classes. I don't expect you to master them all. I expect you to find tools in your toolbox that you can learn with, grow, evolve, put some tools out, put some new tools in as you go through. I hope that makes sense. All right, cool. I wasn't going to do this. We need to do more drills right now. So let's do the second half of the Meyer square. We're a little bit earlier ahead of where I wanted to be, so we got plenty of time. Let's do the back four. So we've done the first two forms, the first two parts of the Meyer square. Let's do the second two parts. So I'm going to start with the first four. So shoulder guard, down, 1, up, 2, up, 3, down, 4, backwards, second route, up, 1, down, 2, down, 3, up, 4. Now here's the trickiest part in all the Meyer square. The next, since we did a cut in the upper left, right quadrant, we started in the upper left quadrant, our next action starts in the upper left quadrant. So we are here. We just ended on a rising cut. If I start in the upper left, I'm going to do a descending cut. I want to do that descending cut to the strong, right? So that means I'm already left foot forward, so I want to do this cut. So if I'm here, I have to do a gathering step 1. Now the next 3 are easy as the pattern. 2, 3, 4, right? The transition between the finish of the fourth technique in the second sequence and the first technique in the third sequence is the hardest transition to do. So, right foot forward, middle guard, push back into shoulder. First 4, down, up, up, down. Next 4, up, down, down, up. Now, third transition, round the head, gathering step 1, 2, 3, 4. We're down here. We've done a cut in the first upper right, the second lower right, the first upper left. Our fourth one starts in the lower left. We do a downward cut stepping back. Pattern now is down, 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 down. Last one, last cut, 16th cut, up. That clicked for me when I was doing this and learning this, right? It took me to get the pattern, because I'm a pattern person, right? It took me to get the pattern in my head for it to click. Because now that it clicks, I can practice on footwork, I can practice on measure, I can practice on my mechanics of the arm and the cut, but the memory of the pattern, right, makes it easier for me to focus on the little things, right? So let's do all 16 cuts. 4 up, 4 back, 4 up, 4 back. Remember that trickiest one is we're back here, we're going to go from a high rising cut, gathering step to a descending cut. So, right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard. Let's run through all 16 cuts. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I screwed it up. Man. See that? It's so easy. So, up. 1, up, 2, up, 3, down, 4. Good. This is correct. 1, 2, down, 3, up, 4. Now I did it right. Gathering. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope that makes sense. Let's do that again. I think I screwed that last one up. Shoulder guard. 1, down, up, up, down, backwards, up, down, down, up, down, up, up, down, up, down, down. That's where I got it. Up. So, last one I finally did right. Let's do that one more time. All 16 cuts. See, it's an ever-learning process. I don't do these every single week, and I should. So, right foot forward, left foot back, middle guard. Step back into shoulder. First 4. Down. Up. Up. Down. Second 4. Up. Down. Down. Up. Third 4. Down. Up. Up. Down. Fourth 4. Up. Down. Oops. Sorry. Up. You know, it's one of those nights. I was trying to get a good sequence. Felt good right to the end there. We're going to do it one more time. I think this is the last time because I think I'm tired. I think that's one of the problems. So up into shoulder guard. Sorry, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That worked out. Practice that. I will isolate that last 16 cut pattern that was correct, and I'll put that up there as a small video so you can practice it. It is historically a long sword, but you can do that with side sword, you can do that with military saber, you can do that with lightsaber. The weapon is independent, right? The movements are the same, and you're going to get equal benefit out of it. So, all right, so let's do our plank, and then we will do our closing sun salutation to end the class. 1 minute plank. Y'all can do it. I know you can. All right, so I'll do it in push-up position today. I've been doing it on my forearms. So keep your back nice and straight. 1 minute, go. So if you're doing this, look at your alignment of your elbows, or I'm sorry, your shoulders to your wrists should form a straight line, right? It's a skeletal alignment that you're using here, right? You're resting on that. It should be, you shouldn't, you're not leaning forward, you're not leaning back, right? I forgot where we started, right? So I'm going to say 10 more seconds to 30 seconds, and then we'll do another 30 seconds after that. Y'all can yell at me if we're going to do an extra time, but tough. 30 more seconds. Contrary, when you're doing this on your forearms, you're creating a triangle, but without that third arm. So you actually lose some of the stability, which is a little bit tougher on the core. You really want to hold yourself straight and tight with your core. So if you're not strengthening your core and tightening your core right now, if you're not pulling your core right now, you're not getting out of this. You need to tuck in, tighten those abs, and keep yourself and hold yourself in place and really feel that tension. 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. And I do think we did a little bit longer than a minute there. So that's class. Let's do our closing sun salutation, and then we'll wrap it up and do a quick little recap. So up to your feet, shoulder width apart, nice and comfortable. Sorry about that. Up to the ceiling. Down your toes, knees, ankles, floor, whatever you can reach today. Walk it out, downward dog. Push your heels toward the ground. Dive down, roll up into cobra, up into plank. Head between your arms, chin to your chest. Back up into downward dog. Walk it in and roll up nice and slow all the way to the ceiling. Stay on your tiptoes. Wobbling is a good thing. Wobbling means you're working your stabilizers. And out to the walls. Stay on those tiptoes. And down. All right. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you're enjoying this. If you have any ideas, thoughts, questions, or things you would like to see us do here, message me, reply, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and forward it to your friends, right? Thank you all very much. I appreciate it, and have a good night. Cheers.